Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I was 17 this summer it happened. That strange, bone-dry summer in northern Arizona, where the wind carried whispers and the night hung heavy, like something breathing on your neck in the dark. I've been helping my uncle with cattle herding on his property, which sat on the edge of Navajo land, close enough that the stories felt real even when you didn't believe in them. You know the ones, the old legends people don't like to say out loud. Skinwalkers, shapeshifters, evil that wears a face like yours. But back then, I didn't put much stock in old tales. I believed in dust, sweat, and getting a job done. That day had been long. The sky was bruised orange by dusk, and my uncle had to head into town to pick up some supplies. I volunteered to stay behind, keep an eye on the herd. We'd set up a makeshift camp just off a dry ravine, maybe 15 feet across at its widest, shallow but thick with desert brush. It was the kind of place you didn't want to wander through at night. Rattlesnakes, coyotes, God knows what else. I had my dog with me, Bear. Half-wolf, black as oil, with those eerie amber eyes. He didn't bark much. Didn't need to. When he growled, you listened. The evening passed uneventfully. I ate some jerky, drank warm water, and watched the stars come out one by one like old friends. It was quiet except for the low, occasional bellow of a distant cow and bears breathing beside me. Then something changed. It was subtle at first. The silence grew tighter, like the world had taken a breath and held it. The cows grew restless, their moos short and clipped. Bear stood up, ears pinned back, and growled low in his throat, staring into the darkness across the ravine. I stood too, peering into the black. Then I heard it. "Hey, boy, come here a sec." It was my uncle's voice, or something like it, coming from the other side of the ravine. My skin went cold. He'd left hours ago, long before the sun dipped behind the hills. I remember checking my watch. Midnight. Give or take a few minutes. "Uncle," I called back, my voice shaking a little. "Yeah, it's me." The voice replied, flat and emotionless. "I need help with a cow." Something was wrong. The tone, it was too perfect. The syllables were spaced out just right, but with no feeling behind them, like someone reading off a script, a poor actor playing a familiar part. Bear was snarling now, hackles raised, eyes locked on a single spot across the ravine. I stepped closer, holding the flashlight tight in my hand, but not turning it on yet. My gut told me not to make any sudden movements. Then Bear took off. He bolted toward the edge of the ravine, as if to leap, but stopped cold just before the drop, and whimpered. I reached him and looked across the gap. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was a man. A silhouette crouched low, maybe a ranch hand or someone from a nearby property. But then the moon shifted behind a cloud, and I saw it clearer. It was squatting on all fours. Its back was too long, limbs too thin, as if someone had stretched the bones beyond what they were meant to bear. The head hung low, but its eyes caught the moonlight, yellow, reflective, like an animal's. And it was smiling, not a human smile. All teeth, too wide, too straight. A grin that said, "I'm not wearing this skin right." Then it spoke again, but not in my uncle's voice. This time it used mine. Come here now. I said, come here. Exactly the way I'd said it before. Same pitch, same rhythm, like it had recorded me and played it back. I couldn't breathe. It tilted its head to the side, fast, like a bird hearing something strange, and then stood upright in one smooth, unnatural motion. Its legs were wrong, backward. The joints didn't bend where they should. It stared at me for what felt like a full minute, smiling like a mask stretched too thin. Then it ran, not away like a scared animal. It sprinted into the brush, low and fast, moving like a film fast-forwarded. I could hear the dry grass and brittle branches snapping in its wake. And then silence. Bear refused to move. He stayed by my side the rest of the night, ears twitching, eyes wide. I didn't sleep, just sat there with the flashlight in one hand and my uncle's old rifle in the other, watching the darkness. When dawn finally painted the hills pink, I dared to cross the ravine. There were no footprints. Not human, not animal. Just broken brush where something had crouched in a patch of dirt that looked wrong. Like the ground itself had recoiled. I told my uncle. He didn't laugh. He didn't mock me. He just stared at me for a long time and said, "Next time, don't answer when you hear your own voice calling." That was the last summer I helped with the cattle. Bear died 2 years later, old age. But even in his last days, if he heard a voice in the distance calling my name, he growled. Every damn time. And me? I don't talk to the night anymore. Not even when it talks back. Story 2. 3 years ago, I went backpacking deep into the Uinta Mountains with 2 close friends, Jason and Mark. We were trying to escape the noise of life, you know. Work, bills, all that crap. The mountains were supposed to be our reset button. Fresh air, cold rivers, no phone service, just 3 guys in the trees. We planned the trip for weeks. Jason handled the gear, Mark had the map, and I just wanted to breathe again. What none of us planned for was what waited in those woods. We set up camp near a place Jason pointed out on the map. The trail was rough, barely marked, but it led to a flat clearing surrounded by thick pine trees. Mark joked it looked like a place people got murdered in. I laughed, nervously. As we unpacked, a man passed by on the trail. Late 60s, heavy beard, eyes like stones. He slowed when he saw us and said, "You boys camping here?" Jason nodded. The man stared at the trees behind us. "Locals don't go near this spot. They say it's cursed." Mark laughed. "Because of what ghosts?" The man didn't smile. Something older. Something that don't belong. Then he walked off and disappeared into the trees without another word. We joked about it over dinner. "Cursed spot," Jason said in a spooky voice while poking the fire with a stick. "Maybe the ghost of a grizzly will visit us tonight." It was funny then. Just a weird story from a weird old man. But around 2 a.m., that stopped being funny. I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside the tent. Not animals. Not wind. These were slow. Measured. Like someone pacing. Back and forth. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. Pause. I thought it was Jason getting up to pee. I whispered, "Jason." No answer. I rolled over. He was still inside, zipped up in his sleeping bag. So was Mark. The footsteps kept going. Circling. I held my breath. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might wake them. But something in me, something primal, said don't speak again. Don't move. Just listen. Then came scratching. Long, drawn-out scratches across the nylon fabric of the tent. Slow and deliberate, not frantic like a bear or a raccoon. This was calculated. Jason shifted and sat up. I saw his eyes in the dim moonlight bleeding through the nylon. "What the hell is that?" he mouthed. I was about to answer when I heard it. My voice, from outside, whispering, "Hey, come out. I need help. Cold." My entire body went cold. I didn't say that. I hadn't spoken. Jason's mouth dropped open. "That sounded like you," he whispered. Mark was awake now, too. He didn't say a word, but I could hear his breathing, shallow, fast. "Hey, come on. I'm hurt." Again, my voice, perfectly mimicked, but flat, like someone repeating sound they didn't understand. Then something touched the top of the tent. A single poke, like a finger, then another, then 5, slowly dragging down the nylon, making it creak and fold inward. Mark whimpered. I wanted to scream, but something told me, don't react. That thing wanted us to make a sound. Open the zipper. Acknowledge it. The air turned foul. Thick, like rotting meat left in the sun, and wet fur. The kind of stench that makes your stomach curl. The scratching stopped, but it didn't leave. It sat, just outside the tent, breathing. I couldn't see it, but I felt it, like a pressure on my chest. A presence, a hunger. I remember the silence most, the kind that hums in your ears and makes your own heartbeat sound like a drum. We sat like that until dawn, when the first light of morning bled through the trees. The pressure lifted. The air cleared. Jason unzipped the tent slowly, like he was defusing a bomb. Nothing, but about 10 feet away, we saw something that made me drop to my knees. Bare human footprints. No shoes. Just long, narrow feet pressed into the dirt. But beside them, claw marks. Deep, uneven like something with hands, but not human. We packed up in minutes. No breakfast. No jokes. We didn't talk on the hike back down. We couldn't. Jason deleted the pictures he took on the trip. Said he didn't want to bring any part of that thing back home. Mark moved out of state 2 months later. He doesn't talk to us anymore. Sometimes I hear noises outside my window at night. Scratching, whispering, always soft, always patient. Sometimes it's still my voice. Story 3. I've never talked about this. Not the real version, anyway. The official report says I finished my shift at Fire Tower 9 in New Mexico without incident. That's a lie. Not because I wanted a lie, but because no one would believe what actually happened. Hell, I barely believe it myself. My name's James Foster. I was a park ranger for 4 years, stationed in the high desert of northern New Mexico. Mostly dry brush, twisted pines, mountain lions that knew how to hide in the shadows, and enough empty space to make you hear your own thoughts echo. The kind of place where things disappear, sometimes animals, sometimes people, but the land never gives anything back. In the summer of 2020, I pulled a solo week up at Fire Tower 9. The climb up the mountain is steep and winding, and the nearest human was maybe 15 miles away. The tower itself was old, steel bones creaking when the wind hit, wooden walls that smelled like dust and time, and an old radio mounted on the desk near the window. The damn thing hadn't worked in years. I knew that because the previous ranger left a note scrawled on the wall. Radio's dead. Use satellite phone for emergencies. Don't bother with the other thing. The other thing being a radio. Now, you might be wondering why we even had a broken radio up there. Budget cuts, I guess. Bureaucracy. Or maybe they left it as a joke. Some leftover piece of nostalgia from when analog tech still ran the world. Either way, it sat there, a forgotten piece of hardware with a broken antenna and dust thick enough to write your name in. It was day 3 when the storm rolled in. The sky turned the color of bruised flesh, ugly purples and grays, while thunder boomed across the canyons like the voice of something old waking up. Lightning danced on the horizon, getting closer. I love storms. Usually, they make you feel small in a good way, like the earth is still in charge. But that one, it felt different. Off. I could feel in my skin, the way a dog can sense an earthquake before it hits. By midnight, the tower shook with every gust of wind. Rain slammed against the windows, and the satellite phone had no bars. Not unusual, but still inconvenient. I was writing in my logbook, trying to ignore the wind howling like a wounded animal, when the impossible happened. The old radio crackled to life. At first, I thought it was static. Maybe the wind finally shifted something loose inside it. But then, through the static, I heard a voice. "Ranger James, do you copy?" I stared at the radio like it had grown teeth. It wasn't just the fact that it was working. It was that voice. Calm. Too calm. Like someone trying real hard to sound natural. But more than that, they said my name. Not Ranger. Not Hey You. My actual name. And I hadn't told anyone I'd be up there that week. Not even my mother. I reached for the mic with a hand that wasn't steady. "This is Ranger Foster," I said. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "I'm lost. I followed your voice." That sentence still haunts me. I hadn't broadcast anything. I hadn't spoken into the mic at all before that. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like it was filled with sawdust. "Say again." Silence. Then came another voice, this one softer, familiar in a way that made my spine tighten like piano wire. "I'm inside now." The voice was mine. I spun around in my chair, so fast it slammed into the wall. Nothing. No one. The door was still locked. The room was still empty. But I swear to God, I felt something watching me. I could feel it, the way you feel heat without touching the fire. And the radio, it kept going. "James, James, James," over and over, but each time in a different voice. First my mother's, then my brother's, then my ex-girlfriend, whispering my name like we were lying in bed again. Then my father's voice, except he'd been dead 3 years. Each one sounded almost right. Almost, but just a hair off. Too flat, too smooth, like someone trying on a human mask, but forgetting to move the mouth. And then came the laughter. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal either. It was something else, deep and wet and broken, like something old had just remembered how to laugh, and it didn't know when to stop. I yanked the plug from the radio. Dead silence. For a second, I felt relief, until the damn thing turned back on by itself. No power, no signal, no batteries, just voices. Now they weren't calling me. They were arguing. Dozens of them. Some yelling, some whispering, some crying. And they were all using my voice. I don't remember falling asleep. I must have blacked out from fear. Or maybe something knocked me out. I woke up on the floor around dawn, my boots soaked with cold sweat, and something else, something sticky. There were handprints on the floor. Long, thin, too many fingers, as if something had been crawling toward me in the night. When I got down to the ranger station later that morning, I looked like hell, pale, shaking. My supervisor raised an eyebrow and asked if I'd run into a bear or something. I told him the radio at the tower started working again. His face went blank. "We decommissioned that line 6 years ago," he said. "It doesn't have power. We cut the wires." I asked if maybe someone repaired it. "No," he said, slower this time. "And James, there are no working towers during that storm. You were completely off-grid." I told him I must have been imagining things, that I'd had a bad night, that maybe I was overtired, but I knew the truth. Something out there had called me by name, had mimicked the people I loved, had spoken with my own voice, and whatever it was, it followed my voice. That was my last shift in the park. I quit the next week, packed my things, and moved out of state. Haven't stepped foot in a fire tower since. But every now and then, when I'm alone and the house is quiet, I hear static in the back of my head, just faint enough to ignore. And sometimes, in that static, I hear a voice. I'm still inside,